Welcome to 400 Years, a channel that explores Black history, heritage, and perspectives. We are dedicated to remembering and reclaiming our past through meaningful discussions. Join us as we shine a light on the often overlooked narratives that have been silenced, suppressed, or ignored, from the haunting legacy of the Atlantic slave trade to the profound impact of Black literature and Black culture. In this episode, we're delving into a captivating era of African history. Prepare to discover the untold tale of the mighty Kingdom of Dahomey, a realm of immense power, vibrant traditions, and extraordinary warriors. Our main focus is on the fearless Dahomey Amazons, the warrior queens who defied expectations and left an indelible mark on history. Get ready to dive deep into their remarkable story and unravel the captivating secrets of the Kingdom of Dahomey. Join us on this enlightening journey as we explore the rich tapestry of Black history and celebrate the resilience, strength, and triumphs of our ancestors. Welcome to 400 Years. The Kingdom of Dahomey thrived from around 1600 to 1904 in what we now call Benin, a country located in West Africa. The land was first settled by the Fon people, an ethnic group that still exists to this day. They made their home on the Abomey Plateau, and even had a king ruling over them. But it wasn't until their third king, Huegbaja, took the throne in 1645 that things really kicked into high gear. That's when the kingdom started to organize and amp up their power. Under the influence of Huegbaja, Dahomey established a strong foundation for administration and religious practices. Their dominant religion, known as Vodun, thrived as they pursued the necessary steps for establishing dominance and authority, which included conquering neighboring territories. Dahomey flourished under Huegbaja, laying the groundwork for effective administration and the development of a rich religious tradition. Huegbaja's reign marked a significant turning point in Dahomey's history, as he implemented various measures that consolidated power and solidified the kingdom's authority. One of the notable aspects of Dahomey under Huegbaja was the thriving practice of their dominant religion, Vodun. Vodun, also known as Voodoo, played a central role in the daily lives of the Dahomey people. It encompassed a diverse array of spiritual beliefs, rituals, and practices that were deeply intertwined with their cultural identity. The veneration of ancestral spirits, deities, and the forces of nature were key components of Vodun, fostering a strong sense of community and religious devotion among the Dahomey people. However, alongside religious practices, Huegbaja recognized the importance of territorial expansion for establishing dominance and authority in the region. Dahomey embarked on a series of military campaigns, conquering neighboring territories and absorbing them into the expanding kingdom. These conquests not only extended Dahomey's boundaries, but also provided access to valuable resources such as land, trade routes, and captives who could be sold as slaves. Huegbaja's strong leadership and strategic vision allowed Dahomey to flourish both politically and economically. He implemented effective administrative systems that enhanced governance, including the establishment of a centralized bureaucracy and a hierarchical structure within the kingdom. This enabled greater control over the conquered territories and facilitated the implementation of policies to further strengthen Dahomey's authority. Throughout its early history, Dahomey gained renown for its intricate artwork, vibrant Vodun traditions, and the famed Dahomey Amazons, a formidable all-woman military unit. Huegbaja's rule fostered cultural and artistic achievements within Dahomey. The kingdom experienced a renaissance of traditional crafts, such as woodcarving, metalwork, and pottery. Skilled artisans produced intricate and highly sought-after works that showcased the kingdom's cultural vibrancy and artistic prowess. Overall, under Huegbaja's influence, Dahomey thrived as a powerful and influential kingdom. Through effective administration, the flourishing of Vodun, territorial expansion, and cultural achievements, Dahomey solidified its dominance and left a lasting legacy in the region. As the 18th century dawned, Dahomey embarked on a trajectory of economic growth and expansion. But a significant portion of this prosperity was derived from the practice of slave trading, in which they engaged with European traders. In a world where the choices were either enslaving others or facing enslavement themselves, Dahomey opted for the former. Dahomey engaged in the capture and sale of individuals in the Atlantic slave trade, receiving goods such as rifles, tobacco, and alcohol in exchange. Additionally, the kingdom retained some captives for enslavement within its own territory, compelling them to toil on plantations and produce food for its military and royal members. The annual customs of Dahomey frequently incorporated mass executions of enslaved individuals for the purpose of human sacrifice, alongside the offering of gifts and the performance of votive ceremonies. The origins of the Dahomey Amazons. At the core of this kingdom resided the legendary Dahomey Amazons, a revered all-female military force renowned for their unmatched courage, expertise, and unwavering loyalty. The Dahomey Amazons are veiled in uncertainty, but they emerged during the reign of Huagbaja as a collective of hunters known as Gbeto. Much of the information about them stems from the accounts of European visitors who bestowed the name Amazons upon them. Predictably, these European perspectives portrayed the Dahomey Amazons as excessively masculine, instilling fear within them. However, the women themselves referred to each other as Mino, meaning our mothers in the Fon language. Some of them also held the title of Ahosi, signifying king's wives. The Dahomey Amazons grew in numbers significantly, with estimations surpassing 6,000 women by 1850. The women embraced a life of singleness, dedicating themselves entirely to the kingdom and shunning conventional expectations associated with traditional femininity. The Kingdom of Dahomey's penchant for frequent conquests and violence led to many men's deaths, and the kingdom gave up many of their own people as slaves, by force, to the more powerful Oyo Empire. This is where the Dahomey women hunters likely rose in the military ranks to become fighters. Some of them were captives, but many came from Dahomey, volunteering to be of service. Of course, women who did not play by the rules ended up in the regiment. They could hone their undesirable traits into something useful for war. They went through intense training, getting into supreme physical shape, and deadening their overt emotions towards death and violence. Becoming a Mino was an avenue for many women to obtain what they didn't have previously: wealth, status, and influence. There were different specializations among them, with some being experts with rifles or bow and arrow, their uniforms marking regiment distinctions. In the film The Woman King, Viola Davis's character Nansika represents one of the Mino's commanders, a woman warrior whose skill and leadership surpasses her counterparts. After the Dahomey Amazons fought in the Franco-Dahomeyan Wars and lost over 2/3 of their members, they were disbanded after France's takeover. Some of the warriors went on to live a traditional life, while others struggled after years of combat. Interestingly, the last living Dahomey Amazon is thought to be Nawi, a main character in The Woman King, played by South African actress Thuso Mbedu. Fact versus fiction. The film Woman King portrays Nawi, a recruit who receives guidance from Nansika. In 1978, the real Nawi conversed with a historian, revealing her involvement in combat against the French nearly 90 years prior. Sadly, she passed away in November of the following year, with estimates suggesting she was over 100 years old. Although it may seem improbable for a woman who lived until 1979 to have fought in a 19th century war, the regiment allowed girls as young as 8 to join their ranks. Therefore, it is plausible that Nawi was a preteen or even a teenager during those battles. The Agoji, a historically factual group that endured for over a century, have also served as inspiration in popular culture, notably seen in the portrayal of the Dora Milaje in the film Black Panther. These all-female special forces originate from the fictional African nation of Wakanda and first appeared in Marvel comic books. Their significant role continued on screen in 2018, and the sequel, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, further highlighted the women of Wakanda. The producers of Woman King acknowledged that Black Panther played a significant role in paving the way for films highlighting the stories of people of color, which have often been marginalized in the Hollywood industry. The Woman King represented a groundbreaking milestone as the first major motion picture in the United States to delve into the narrative of the Agoji. Additionally, it explored the involvement of Dahomey in the slave trade, albeit with a glossed-over representation of King Gezo's temporary suspension of the kingdom's participation in 1852, followed by its reinstatement later. The mere existence of the Agoge was an anomaly. European visitors referred to them as the Dahomey Amazons, in reference to the all-female Amazon warriors of Greek mythology. Again, the actual origins of the Dahomey Amazons are cloudy, although the first recorded mention of them dates back to 1729. One theory suggests that the Agoge began as a dedicated group of elephant hunters. Another theory is that Queen Hangbi, the twin sister of King Akaba, planted the seed for the idea of the women warriors in the early 1700s, the role slavery played in the Dahomey kingdom. The Agoge and the Dahomey are not without complexity. In The Woman King, Nanisca experiences firsthand the horrors of slavery and works to convince King Gezo to stop participating in the slave trade, or at least to end the tributary status of the Dahomey to the Oyo Empire. But the Dahomey did derive much of their wealth from participating in the slave trade. The Woman King opens in 1823, the year that King Gezo finally freed Dahomey from its tributary status. Although the movie acknowledges that Dahomey does participate in the slave trade at the time, Nanisca is resolved to completely end the kingdom's involvement, a concern she brings directly to the king, who seems to agree, a milestone that did not actually happen until decades later. Dahomey's involvement in the slave trade, which constituted approximately 5% of slave exports from Africa, is an undeniable tragedy. However, a society can possess progressive and advanced aspects while simultaneously inflicting immense harm. When discussing European history, scholars are increasingly acknowledging the continent's significant role in the slave trade. This recognition does not overshadow the contributions made by each nation to the world. Rather, it highlights the intertwined nature of their existence. While it is crucial to confront and understand the legacy of Dahomey and the slave trade, we must also explore the independent achievements of any continent or country, as we do with others. This comprehensive approach allows for a more nuanced understanding of history. Life of a warrior. The Amazons of Dahomey were often described as leading celibate lives. In 1851, they were observed to live in chastity, not supposed to marry, and to reject their natural desires. Another account stated that they were bound to perpetual celibacy under the threat of death. This description is not entirely accurate, as the Amazons were legally married to the king of Dahomey. Nonetheless, only a small number of them had the privilege of engaging in sexual relations with the king, and those who did were exempted from active military duty. As wives of the king, the Amazons were forbidden from having sexual relations with anyone else. Adultery with a royal wife was punishable by death. In 1864, an incident occurred where 150 pregnant Amazons and their partners were brought to trial, resulting in the execution of 8 men, while others faced imprisonment or demotion within Dahomey society. Consequently, as long as they were Amazons, the women remained celibate. Not all of them were virgins, as some had been recruited through capture or judicial punishment and had prior sexual experiences. In 1864, it was estimated that 2/3 of the Amazons were virgins, while others had been married before. European observers speculated about the effects of this sexual abstinence on the Amazons, believing that celibacy may have contributed to their effectiveness as soldiers. They argued that the excitement of battle served as a substitute for sexual fulfillment, causing the Amazons to forget their other desires. Some modern studies have also echoed these notions. It is worth mentioning that the enforced celibacy of the Amazons was considered problematic within Dahomeyan life as well. According to tradition, new recruits underwent clitoridectomy as a means to reduce their sexual drive. One scholarly account suggests that the Dahomeyan Amazons may have practiced lesbianism, albeit subtly mentioned in a scholarly footnote and expressed through cryptic references. As a rule, these fighting celibataires prefer the morosive voluptas of the schoolmen and the peculiarities of the 10th muse. The mention of the 10th muse refers to the lesbian poetess Sappho. It remains uncertain whether this belief reflects anything more than scholarly conjecture. It could have been an inference based on the presence of licensed prostitutes serving the male population in Dahomey, along with a corresponding group appointed to serve within the Amazons. Yet this may also be a matter of conjecture. The names given to the Amazons in Dahomey had metaphorical implications and represented various conventional female roles. In Dahomeyan idiom, they were referred to as mothers, mino, in relation to the male officials and soldiers they supported. Simultaneously, in relation to the king himself, they were called wives, ahosi, a term that generically applied to all women associated with the palace, including eunuchs, rather than solely referring to sexual partners. Another perspective on the relationship between the Amazons and the king portrayed them as his daughters. While no specific explanation for this idiom has been found in existing literature, its significance can be inferred. It may have conveyed dependence or subordination, similarly to how the king's male soldiers might be called his sons. However, it appears that there was more to it, as the Amazons themselves described their connection to the king as his daughters in 1850. They stated, "Gezo has borne us again. We are his wives, his daughters, his soldiers, his sandals." This expression could indicate that women recruited as Amazons, particularly free Dahomeyan women under the conscription system established during the reign of Gezo, were expected to sever their ties with their families, dedicating their loyalty exclusively to the king. Women versus men. From a modern standpoint, the inclusion of women in traditionally male-dominated employment can be seen as a challenge to male dominance and a declaration of equal rights and abilities. This connection was acknowledged by at least one observer in the 1880s who encountered the Dahomeyan Amazons and criticized women advocating for their rights, arguing that equality should logically include the obligation to serve and risk death in war. On a more positive note, a French journalist from the 1930s reinterpreted the formation of the Amazons, along with the sexual freedom enjoyed by women of the royal lineage, as part of a feminist movement among Dahomeyan women. Employing women as soldiers in Dahomey was undoubtedly perceived as a challenge to traditional gender norms, asserting women's equality with, or even superiority over men. However, in their attempt to assume conventional male roles, the Amazons seem to reject their own femininity rather than affirm it. Accounts from scholars in 1850 reveal that the Amazons claim to have been reborn as men under the king's authority. "We were women. We are now men. Gezo has born us again." The testimony of former Amazon Tata Ajache, recorded in the 1920s, confirms this indigenous Dahomeyan belief. After killing and disemboweling her first enemy, she was told, "You are a man." Thus, the traditional association of courage with masculinity was reinforced rather than challenged. Paradoxically, the Amazons perpetuated the stereotype that linked femininity with cowardice. In 1850, they sang about their recent victory over the Ashanti, stating, "We marched against the Atakpamans as against men. We came and found them women." While serving as Amazons allowed individual women to gain personal empowerment, achieve recognition, and even rise to positions of command and political influence, it was within the framework of serving a male monarch. Unlike the Amazons of classical antiquity, the Dahomey Amazons fought not against, but in support of male rule. In Dahomey, women's path to advancement lay through rather than outside subservience. However, in this regard, the Dahomey Amazons were no different from men. In Dahomey, everyone's success depended on the favor of the king, irrespective of gender. Decline of the Kingdom of Dahomey. As the mid-19th century approached, the kingdom faced a decline due to increasing pressure from Britain to cease their involvement in the slave trade. It was during this period, under the rule of King Gezo, that the kingdom faced the challenging decision of relinquishing this lucrative business, to which the king staunchly objected. Dahomey began to crumble as a fearsome kingdom in several interconnected ways. First, the Royal Navy put a blockade and patrols at Dahomey's coast in order to force the kingdom to abolish the dreaded slave trade. The abolition of the transatlantic slave trade had a significant impact on Dahomey's economy. Dahomey had relied on the slave trade as a major source of revenue, and its decline meant a loss of income and disrupted economic systems. With the decline of the slave trade, Dahomey's economy needed to adapt. The kingdom attempted to engage in legitimate commerce, such as palm oil and other agricultural exports. However, the transition from a slave-based economy to a new economic model proved challenging, and Dahomey struggled to establish stable trade networks and maintain economic prosperity. Second, internal struggles and political instability caused Dahomey to face internal conflicts and power struggles among various factions and royal successors. These internal divisions weakened the kingdom and made it susceptible to external pressures. Additionally, the expansionist policies pursued by some Dahomeyan kings led to conflicts with neighboring states, further draining resources and destabilizing the kingdom. Indeed, the nearby safe haven refugee city-state of Abeokuta defeated Dahomey in a major battle. And third, growing tensions with France set the stage for war in the impending decades. In this turn of events, there were two Franco-Dahomeyan wars, which ended in 1894 with France taking over. Dahomey was situated in an area of West Africa that was heavily targeted by European powers during the scramble for Africa. The French, in particular, sought to expand their colonial influence and control over the region. Dahomey faced increasing pressure from French forces, leading to territorial losses and a reduction in its power and influence. European powers like the French possessed advanced military technologies and superior firepower compared to the armies of Dahomey. This gave them a significant advantage in any conflicts or confrontations, making it increasingly difficult for Dahomey to resist or maintain its independence. Ultimately, a combination of external pressures, economic challenges, internal conflicts, and European colonization contributed to the decline of Dahomey as an independent kingdom. In 1894, Dahomey was formally incorporated into French West Africa as a French protectorate, marking the end of its existence as an independent political entity. Dahomey became French Dahomey, a colony, 10 years later. It transitioned to a self-governing colony, the Republic of Dahomey, with full independence coming in 1960. In 1975, the area got yet another name, the People's Republic of Benin, which later simply became the Republic of Benin. That is the official name today, but is colloquially known as Benin. This has been 400 years. Thank you for joining us on this journey and exploring the fascinating Dahomey Kingdom and its mighty Dahomey Amazons. We want to express our gratitude to each and every one of you for watching our videos. We hope it provided you with valuable insights along the way. If you enjoyed learning about the Dahomey Kingdom, please give it a thumbs up and share it with others who might find it interesting. Remember to subscribe to 400 Years for more exciting topics in the future. Thank you once again for your support, and we'll see you in the next video.